Okay, we ready to tape?
Thank you for coming, and we'll go ahead and get started.
Welcome to the June 6th Planning Commission meeting. We have the meeting, and we'll do the roll call. Jim Saunders.
Here.
Ray Strong.
Here.
Sean Jones.
Here.
John Quinn.
Here.
Bill Crowdy.
Here.
Okay. Paul Rigger, unfortunately, could not make it today. We have in front of us the minutes you've presented to you, read. I hope you have any corrections, amendments, or hearing none, a motion.
I'll make a motion, we accept the minutes as proposed, or as submitted.
Yeah, second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Our first application is Gillespie Precast LLC, Morgan Creek Land Holdings LLC, and this is a preliminary site plan review. Staff, first, I guess.
Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Rob Tracy. I'm an associate planner with the department. Before you today is Gillespie Precast LLC, also known as Morgan Land Holdings LLC. They're requesting a preliminary site plan review for the expansion of their contractor's storage yard from 5.38 acres to 13.38 acres, the construction of a 60-foot by 88-foot storage building, the installation of a stormwater management area, and the construction of a new entrance onto MD Route 291, also known as Morgan Road. In separate phases, the applicants propose to construct two 80-foot by 200-foot concrete manufacturing plants and to install aggregate bins and a ramp. Located on the north side of Maryland Route 291, also known as Morgan Road, the 190-acre property is split zoned industrial critical area, and resource conservation area by the county. The proposed storage yard expansion and associated stormwater management facility will be within the industrial and critical area industrial districts. The proposed storage building will be the only structure within the industrial district during this phase of the project. There's no disturbance within the RCD, and that includes removal of vegetation and no additional lot coverage. The proposed activity is exempt from the forest conservation requirements as more than 50% of the property is within the critical area. The applicant proposes to mitigate an area equal to 15% of the limit of disturbance within the industrial district through a combination of landscape screening, forest conservation, and afforestation to total 2.78 acres. I want to highlight two things within the staff report regarding the access. The applicant is proposing a second entrance approximately 700 feet from the existing entrance onto Maryland Route 291. The plans for the proposed access have been submitted to SHA District 2 for review. However, we haven't received any comments to date. Article 5, Section 15.73 of the Kent County Land Use Ordinance establishes the standards for spacing curb cuts, which prohibit the creation or continuation of highway strip development within multiple access points within highway hazards, which would create a highway hazard or visual clutter insofar as practically possible. Highway strip is defined as two or more access points or curb cuts off of an existing state or county road within 300 feet of each other. Any use in the industrial district shall have access at least 3,000 feet from the highway strip as possible. The Planning Commission can grant a waiver from this requirement, and those requirements are as follow. I'll quickly read them for you. The proposal complies with the spirit and intent of the Land Use Ordinance and Comprehensive Plan, that the waiver will not cause a substantial detriment to the adjacent property owners. The waiver will not create a safety hazard, and the The waiver is a minimum necessary to relieve a practical difficulty that is not sought for reasons of convenience or profit. Article 5, Section 15.9C and 16.8B1 talk about the establishment of site access. And in that district, there's supposed to be one off of a county or state road. The Planning Commission can also grant a waiver for site access if they find the following. An additional entrance is a significant benefit to the safety and operation of the highway. One entrance is a safety hazard or increases traffic congestion. The property is bisected by steep slopes, bodies of water, or other topographic features as to render some portion of that property inaccessible without additional road access. The Planning Commission should discuss and determine if a waiver is appropriate to allow for the multiple curb cuts that are less than 3,000 square feet. And the Planning Commission should also determine if it's appropriate to grant a waiver for the second entrance off of 291 Morkneck Road. Staff would recommend granting a preliminary site plan approval. There are a couple items that would need to be submitted for final approval, and those are a certified engineer's report addressing the industrial performance standards inclusive of the newly proposed structures, an updated narrative in accordance with the procedures and standards of the land use ordinance, the front, side, and rear elevations of the proposed equipment storage buildings, SHA approval for the proposed access, approval of erosion and sediment control and stormwater management plans, and submission of all required sureties for stormwater sediment and erosion control, as well as landscaping. I'm happy to go further in depth if you have any questions.
Is there any correspondence?
We haven't received any correspondence, to my knowledge.
Any questions for staff? What do you determine the practical difficulty is?
A practical difficulty relating to some kind of feature of the property, not caused by the landowner's action.
Yeah, what specifically is the practical difficulty here?
Staff didn't find a practical difficulty. We would encourage you to discuss what practical difficulty may or may not exist. And the applicant can certainly speak to that as well.
I thought you would.
No, I hadn't identified one.
Any question for staff? Is the applicant or their representatives here today?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Kevin. It's a testimony about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
It is.
State your names and addresses, please.
Kevin Sharon, DMS and Associates, business address is P.O. Box 80, Centerville, Maryland.
Andrew Gillespie, Gillespie Precast, P.O. Box 450, Chestertown, Maryland.
Thank you.
So we were originally here for a combined concept and preliminary, which was granted back in March of 2023. Time flies. We returned in July of 2023 with an amended plan that included the manufacturing portion of the proposal. At that point, it was just a concept plan. I was mistaken. I thought it was concept and preliminary again, so that's why the plans that you have say final, but it's actually we're seeking preliminary for the two phases. The first phase would be the expansion of the yard and the construction of the storage building. The second phase, we will come back for a subsequent final approval for the manufacturing facilities, but we're seeking preliminary for the entire project at this point. Stormwater management has been revised and a report has been submitted to the county for their review. We have, and perhaps they were not copied on it, but the state highway has approved the second entrance. And this is a letter from June 30th, 2023, stating that the plans submitted are approved. A permit has not been issued yet. We have to post a surety, and then they'll process the permit. So we can give this to planning for their record. So the state does not feel that the second entrance is an issue. The county code, for whatever reason, it kind of boggles my mind that two entrances can't be closer than 3,000 feet from each other. That's, it's over half a mile. So the practical difficulty is in terms of the operation of the facility, it is easier for trucks to come in one entrance and go out the other, similar to the other facility Gillespie owns that you all granted a waiver for. That second entrance also within 3,000 feet of the existing entrance. It just provides for a safer in and out of the facility. It's not a situation, obviously, where it's a strip mall, which I think the code more references a strip mall where they don't want entrances more than 3,000 feet with a lot of patrons coming in and out. But in this situation, it's one owner, it's one operation, and it certainly benefits the safety and circulation for the site. The first phase will not have any full-time employees on site, so we will not have septic and water. The second phase, we'll be working with the health department because that will obviously have full-time employees, and we'll have bathroom facilities in the building. With that, I'll open it up for any questions that you guys might have.
Kevin, since you got the two entrances, are they going to be some sort of signage on there that, like one way, something that, you're saying that it's to create a circulation in there and not having them coming in and going out, so it's my understanding then that, let's say, one of them will be for exit only and one of them will be for entrance only? I mean, that's, your argument is that you need it for circulation, so I would assume you'd restrict some sort of it.
Well, we could either restrict, I guess I was speaking more toward it, if trucks are lined up to get out onto the road and another truck is approaching, they can use that second entrance rather than trying to compete with trucks that are coming out. I mean, we could certainly sign it. I don't know that that wasn't my intent. It was just to provide for a second access of coming and going.
I think that, not that you suggested it, but I think it would be safer, that you would have that instead of them waiting to get in and out. I mean, when these guys come out of there, if he's coming out of there and swinging north, he's crossing traffic, turning, going up the road, getting up speed. I just see that as, I think it would be safer if you came in on one and went out on the other. But
What do you think the practical difficulty is, and we have to find that, that's what
Sure.
What,
Well, I think the practical difficulty is that it's an industrial property, and the nature of the use is that it has trucks coming and going, and to restrict it to just one access point makes it a practical difficulty on the operation of the facility for trucks coming and going in and out of a 200-acre property.
did the state road talk about speed limits, deceleration, anything? Because that's, when we did the other one, that's a, 35 to 40. This is 55 there coming across that hill.
Right.
And those trucks, happily, you see them leave every day, but they creep across the whole highway, and they have to. I mean,
Right,
so
right.
It just seems to me the state would have talked about some of the safety issues there.
They didn't cite any safety issues, and I've gotten on Google Earth, and when you go down the road, I picked a point where you can see over that hip, the hump in the road, and the first time you can see where the entrance is about 1,500 feet. So it's a little over a quarter mile away, where if you're coming into town and you saw a truck coming out, you basically have a quarter mile to slow down.
Right, except, and the nature of the trucks, that's you see it, they're loaded.
Yeah, yeah.
They have a hard time
They
getting out,
lumber
and they have to
along.
be. So
Right.
that's the problem, is the speed, I
Right.
see. But
But the sight distance is certainly there.
Yeah, well, I'm not doubting that. I'm just saying it's the nature of the size of the trucks coming
Right,
out.
right.
And the speed of the highway.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions for these guys? No, the site plan looks good otherwise. Is there anyone there's no one online? I can't, no. Is there anyone in the public wish to comment or on this plan? Can you step forward, sir? You guys can stay there, I think.
Sure, okay.
There's a slide across.
Sorry. My name is Wallace Reynolds. I'm sorry.
That's fine. That's testimony about give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, sir.
My name is Wallace Reynolds. I live at 26959 Morganic Road. And I just have essentially a question, which is related to landscaping. Having experienced the solar field and the issues regarding landscaping there, we just hope that the landscaping here would include a berm, proper trees, irrigation, and follow-up. Because what looks in the documentation is not very clear, and the regulations seem to say sufficient is sort of the definition. And so we, as a neighbor, we just like to see something to stop the noise and the pollution.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is anyone else? Hearing none, do you have any comments before we start to consider things? Any more comments on anything? Okay. Okay, what are our thoughts on this project?
Well, I think it's good site plan. I think they've done a good job with at least proposing the landscaping on the front. What is the afforestation area? What is that going to be? I mean, what are we planting out there, Kevin?
I don't think we've determined that yet, but most likely it'll just be whips to get started. Again, it's not a requirement. It's a proffer to kind of get some screening going. And it's a pretty good sized area, so I would imagine it'll probably start out as whips and then go into forest.
Are you going to make a decision on the road curb cuts first?
Yeah, we have to do that first. I just want any other comments about anything. Okay, we have as Rob mentioned, we have to make a decision on the curb cuts and a waiver there. Do you have the letter from the state?
I do.
I'd love to just, you're young, Kevin, you can jump right over
It
that.
doesn't look long. Could you read that? I mean, all of us would probably benefit from it.
Yeah.
Can we read? Is it-
Yeah, go ahead and start, yeah, anyone read it.
Yeah.
You want me to read it?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Gives us, all of us, the chance to.
So again, this is from NDOT on June 30th, 2023, from Rich Baker, Assistant District Engineer, District 2. Mr. Sharon, thank you for the opportunity to review the submittal for the proposed Gillespie Campbell Soup in Buchanan County. The Maryland Department of Transportation State Highway Administration has reviewed the plans and are pleased to submit plans approved. Access management, so these are then just boilerplate. So access management, number 1 is provide 5 copies and an electronic copy. Number 2, complete the application. Number 3, provide a construction cost estimate. Number 3 goes on to 3I, you can do a performance bond or a letter of credit. And then final plan submittal should reflect the above comments. Upon receipt of these items, including the performance bond, letter of credit, or certified check, and the amount that will be specified, all permit package items, including the application form, well, it's basically just instructions on how to actually apply for the permit itself.
So they didn't really give any comment performance. Yeah. Send your check, that's what it says.
Yeah. So we'd already gone back and forth with them on, there were some hydraulic comments and some other things, and then this was the last submittal where we got the approval letter.
Anyone got anything?
I don't have a problem with A and B, but C and D is a little tough for me to determine.
Well,
You know,
I've had the trouble with C until this. I mean, it just says approved. I assume they saw the plan, but, then the practical difficulty is just hard to, I mean, when the staff didn't offer one either, so we,
I just, I don't know how we as a board can determine that it doesn't create a safety hazard. I'm
All right, so we're good?
I'm not a traffic engineer.
well, that's, I felt the same way I came in. I guess that's what we're relying on is this, letter approved. But I agree. I mean,
You could require a traffic engineer, or a traffic study, or some type of evidence to be brought before you if you wish. That's an option you have.
Well, I mean, the only thing that I can comment on is that to try to ask State Highway to provide a letter that anything is safe, that they're putting themselves out there, even though that's their department. So that would never happen. They will not issue a permit if they do feel it's safe. I mean, that's kind of the underlying, if it's in a situation where they're not gonna, and you already have an access, and you want another access, they're not going to grant one that's in an unsafe area. And then for D, waiver is the minimum necessary to relieve practical difficulty. We've pushed that entrance as far to the east as possible to be, to get the distance between the two accesses. So that's where it's been the minimum necessary.
John and Joel, Ray, you guys, any thoughts on this? Like I say, the plan looks good, and I'd like to, because courtesy of the neighbor, maybe get some whips out a little better. I mean, that's just a thoughtful thing for that, it's, you bought an industrial area and are allowed, but it's more of a rural area, but,
You've been operating on that road all along, right? Making, on 298 trucks going in and out of there?
Yeah, ever since the Campbell Soup building came down.
Right. I don't see no problem with that because you've been pulling, big rigs out of there on the other side, right?
Correct.
You had any problems with that?
Any problems there?
Really, the second entrance is going to be for the passing, the coming and going of trucks, not necessarily a single truck. So, there will be increased volume of trucks going in and out of this plant. And it hasn't been that way so far. So we're predicting that, the increased usage is going to need, it will require, it will be safer, let's put it that way, to have an entrance and an exit for the trucks. So they're not trying to squeeze by each other on one entrance. The Brickyard, which is down the road just a little ways where we're currently operating, that single entrance is a bottleneck for trucks. The state highway, I think, is what, a 35-foot entrance is standard. That's too narrow for trucks to get in and out, passing each other, especially if you're going to go northbound. You need that extra space. So a 35-foot entrance for an exit only, the trucks have plenty of room to turn onto the highway without actually getting into the other lane. So honestly, we don't have to go across the lanes if we have a single entrance and a single exit for these trucks. And that's why we asked for it in the last project, and that's why it was approved in the last project. It's gonna open up traffic for one exit, one entrance. Is kind of what we see.
Is it your testimony that you believe that if there's two entrances, that will actually improve safety?
Yeah, 100%. Trucks get bottlenecked at that entrance. One's trying to come in, one's trying to go out, and it's, I get stuck behind my own trucks regularly, and they're sitting on the highway, people are trying to get around them, but they can't get into the entrance because you got another truck trying to come out. Now, if they were right on top of each other and they're hugging the curb line, there's enough room. Technically, there's enough room. That's why the state highway has that width. But to make that turn, not hit the curbs, you hit the curb, then you blow tires, then, then it just, so yes, the two entrance is 100%, it's flowability, but it's a safety concern too.
How wide, what's the, inches, how wide are
I believe it's 35 feet.
35 feet?
Yes. And that's a state highway standard, I believe. Kevin could probably speak to that.
That's actually the max they would allow, so that's what we were trying to do.
Bill, you had said so.
Yeah, I just wanted to offer some clarifying points and with your permission, sort of run them by council as well. From my point of view, waivers revolve around design issues. This isn't a variance, right? We don't have to find a technical hardship under the law, otherwise we'd be at the Board of Appeals. So in a general sense, right, you're answering questions that sort of in a general design review are these topics addressed, but it's more of a general sense, it's not a technical sense. And we rely on SHA to follow, their review process, state laws, and good engineering standards for safety. So that's how I feel about it. So I think this is more of a design issue than...
That's a fair statement, and I think if you look at the criteria where you get into difficulties, the waiver is the minimum necessary to relieve practical difficulty. And I think what the applicant is saying is having one entrance is a safety concern with the trucks because you're limited to 35 feet as per state highway. And when you have one truck coming and one truck going, that can be problematic. And what you're saying is if you have a second entrance where one is just for ingress and the other is for egress, that allows for a safer flow of the trucks coming and going. That's my
Yes.
understanding of what you're saying.
Yes, correct.
And so, just for the board, it's A, B, C, and D. That is the criteria that you follow for this, which is a little bit different than the criteria for variance.
What do you truck drivers think? Is it safer this way?
I think it's much safer to have two
Okay.
entrances.
Okay. You
I
go.
don't have, I do too, as long as, in my opinion, we don't have two entrances of them fighting to come in and out of. If one's an entrance, one's an exit, I'm fine with it.
And then you could, as part of the approval process, I think you could put a condition that one is for ingress and one is for egress.
Because if not in my opinion, then instead of one bottleneck, you end up with two bottlenecks out there possibly.
Can you put that on in you have a problem with that?
No, I don't have a problem with that.
Oh, okay.
So I think because we learned this recently, that a curb cut waiver is a final decision by the board from a previous case. So just to be clear that this is being granted, but it is under the condition that one will be for ingress and the other for egress. And you'll be reflecting that in the final site plan.
I don't know, is there a way that we can specify that truck traffic and not personal vehicle traffic? Because it's not necessarily personal vehicle traffic.
That would be a question for the board.
Okay.
Any thoughts on that?
It's really the 18-wheelers that take up the space.
I don't know what the problem is with all of them, but I don't know.
I said it's a question for the board. My comment would be, is that confusing? If it's one way for some and two ways for others, that could result in some confusion and the one-way traffic not being followed. That's just, my initial thought on it. But again, it's a decision for the board.
I guess my thought behind that was there'll be employee parking on one end of the, where the production plant is, they'll be on the one side. So instead of having all of our employees drive across the yard where the truck traffic will be coming, it may save us there. It was the only thought. So I just didn't want to kind of pigeonhole ourselves into having our employees drive their personal vehicles through the production yard, through the storage yard, and then you're mixing in forklift traffic and other industrial-related activities that are happening in the yard of the facility. That was my only thought behind that. And I think we've seen signs where you look at quarries and whatnot. there's truck entrance, truck exit. So if we specifically spell that out, I don't know that,
Yeah, that was gonna be my comment. I think it's gonna come down to signage.
yeah,
I mean, I think if you put signage there.
and specifically
Right.
to direct trucks.
Right. That may solve that problem. And you mostly have your, the trucks are under your control, even, they're yours, or.
90%.
You don't have like guy coming in looking for a load of stone on his own too much.
Right, exactly. 90% are hired by us and.
So they would,
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
okay. You don't have time, mate?
Well, look, I don't have a problem with it, even with that, my problem's always been enforcement. And, it just seems like we approve what we want, and then we get what we get. But, as long as there's proper signage out there and Gillespie's are going to enforce it, because I don't believe anybody else is going to enforce it. So, because I just would hate to see if we grant the waiver, that you come out there and, like I say, you've got congestion at both entrances. That's,
You want to put it in the?
I can try to make it.
And I mean, I do believe that, the car traffic, single parking lot over here, there's no point in sending them across the whole yard, so.
We'll build the office closer to the other entrance would be my suggestion.
It may be fair to say, too, the employees are going to be on a shift. They're going to arrive pretty much the same time and leave pretty much the same time, where the trucks are going to be coming and going all day long. So probably the employee arrival and departure time is going to be a little different than the truck arrival and departure time, just thinking because of the nature of the business.
Right.
Well, then I'll make a motion that we grant Gillespie Precast LLC, Morgan Creek Land Holdings, a waiver for the curb cuts on their proposed site. What are they, 700 feet, Kevin?
Yeah, about.
Roughly, approximately 700 feet distance between them, provided that the entrances and exits have the proper signage to restrict truck traffic to one entrance and one exit. And that signage to be determined appropriate at final site plan review. Is that good enough?
Yeah, I guess just,
Do we need to list it?
it follows the criteria, A, B,
That we
C,
find
and
that the
D.
proposal complies with the spirit and intent of the land use ordinance and comprehensive plan, that the waiver will not cause substantial detriment to adjacent or neighboring properties, that based on testimony, the waiver will not create a safety hazard or increase traffic congestion, and that the waiver is the minimum necessary to relieve a practical difficulty and is not sought for reasons of convenience, profit, or caprice.
We have a motion, have a second? Second, any discussion? I'll call the question. Jim Saunders? Ray Strong?
Aye.
Sean Jones?
Aye.
John Quinn?
Aye.
Bill Crowdy?
Aye.
And I'll vote with the affirmative. So we've got the curb cut. What about anything else on the site plan? We liked it pretty much. I do take the neighbors, that it is a nice attractive, I think it's a very attractive road when you get a little past there, but it's attractive there too if you make those, you got some trees there. I know they're probably going out though in the construction, aren't they? But the ones that are there, those old pines.
Yes, we'll replace the ones that have died on us, yes.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure. I don't,
Yeah, there's more
there's more
trees
added.
proposed along.
Okay.
I
So,
think we added that after our last meeting on this
Okay.
road, where it was requested that we add more landscaping.
okay. Anyone else would, for site plan?
Was this two separate issues that we needed to address? A second entrance and then the distance between them? Or is that all covered in the one motion? Okay.
It was covered in one motion, whether it should have been two, that's a.
It appeared to be two separate different things that we were addressing, that's all.
How about site plan approval after?
Anybody got anything? I make a motion that we grant preliminary site plan approval to Gillespie Precast LLC, Morgan Neck Land Holdings, for the expansion of the contractor storage yard from 5.38 acres to 13.36 acres, as well as the construction of a 60 by 88-foot storage building, a stormwater management facility, the new entrance onto Maryland Route 291, and for the future phase of 280-foot by 200-foot concrete manufacturing plants, and to install aggregate bins and ramp. Subject to providing a certified engineer's report addressing industrial performance standards inclusive of the newly proposed structure, an updated narrative in accordance with the procedures and standards for major site plan review as established in Article 6, Section 5.4B, Kent County Land Use Ordinance, front, side, and rear elevations of the proposed equipment storage buildings. I believe we have state highway approval of the proposed access, an approval of an erosion and sediment control stormwater management plan, and submission of all sureties for stormwater management, sediment erosion control, and landscaping.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Second. Okay, second. Any discussion? I'll call the question. Bill Crowding.
Aye.
Jonathan Quinn.
Aye.
Sean Jones.
Aye.
Ray Strong.
Aye.
Jim Saunders. And I'll vote with the affirmative. So, good, thank you. Appreciate it. Is this your, well, you got it.
You get it.
I'll put it in the.
Yeah, that needs to go to somebody.
Our next application is Freedom Properties, GOM LLC, a major site plan to final. Are there applicants or their representatives here? Oh, sorry, yeah. Sorry, Carl, I didn't mean to cut you off.
So we're here for, applicants are seeking final site plan approval for the new accessory structure that's going to be used as a demonstration kitchen and yoga studio for the guest of the Great Oak Manor. There is no change in the number of guest rooms. There's some other small accessory structures already on the building, and the property is on Cliff Road near Great Oak. I'm going to go directly to the site plan review standards and staff comments to that. So the application's in conformance with the comprehensive plan. There is sufficient parking available for guest rooms and staff, and there's also overflow parking that has been designated on the site plan. The landscaping requirement for commercial developments has been provided. The buffer enhancement plan for the new lot coverage complies with regulations. The issues with the health department concerning the adequacy of the septic reserve areas have been resolved. There shouldn't be additional demands on public services. The applicant has minimized the number of existing trees that need to be removed. Mitigation for the proposed tree removal has been provided. The applicant has changed architects from when they came here for preliminary review, but the proposed building appears to complement the historic nature of the site and the surrounding neighborhood. And a citizen participation meeting was held back in 2024. Staff recommends granting final approval contingent upon final approval of the stormwater management plan and submission of any required sureties. Submission of the sureties related to the landscaping, buffer enhancement, and tree clearing mitigation, and recordation of the lot line adjustment.
Thank you. Any correspondence?
No correspondence.
Okay. You have any questions for staff? Hearing none. Is the applicant or their representative here? You're already sworn in, Kevin.
I am, yes.
Can you raise your right hand? Is the testimony about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And your name and address for the record, please?
Name, Colleen Taranunga, and it's, the property address is 10568 Cliff Road.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
What can you tell us about this application?
So we were here in March of this year, received preliminary approval. Nothing has really changed since then, other than just finalizing engineering and finalizing the plan. The architecture is about 85% complete. We've received comments on the stormwater management, which do not seem onerous, so we'll be buttoning that up. And, we revised some of the landscaping as requested by staff. And again, it's pretty much the same project that was reviewed in March. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
So with the different architect, you didn't change?
It didn't
design,
change.
just
It didn't change. The footprint is within inches of the old one, and it happens from time to time where an architect will do just the conceptual on the outside, and then when it gets down to actually designing the building, somebody else will pick it up, and that's what happened here. It's a reputable firm out of Easton, Atelier 11. That's the architect.
Kevin, I know that one of the requirements the Board of Appeals put on was to restrict or not allow any parking on Cliff Road. How are you going to stop that? I mean,
That's an internal enforcement issue, but with this plan, we're adding that grass overflow parking lot, so that'll take up any parking demand for larger events. But it's a self-policing.
I know, but that was the main concern of the public down, or one of the main concerns.
That was
we
one of them.
heard.
They had a few.
One of them, but, I don't know, maybe signage or something again, I mean, I hate to say it, but if I was coming down there and I had to do the overflow parking and maybe parking off the edge of the road and hustling up in there, I'm probably parking off the edge of the road, If there's a sign there that says no parking, maybe not, but, and then on your overflow parking, I see that if the cars closest to the west side are filling up, and then on the east side of that double row, how do the cars on the westernmost side get out of there if the cars on the easternmost side haven't left yet?
Well, I think most likely it would be a valet situation where a valet parker is just stacking them in there, and then they'll pull them out as needed.
And then if we talked about putting some sort of fencing or something to keep them off the septic reserve area?
Yes.
Is that going to be done?
That'll be on there. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. The health department has made that clear. And what we talked about is even a temporary barrier, so it's not up there all the time, that in the event that they have a larger event, that they would put up a temporary fence.
I just have.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. We don't want parking on that, for sure.
They just turned down a building permit because a guy drove across the
Is that
septic
right?
reserve area.
Yeah. Yeah, we finally have gotten to the point where the health department is satisfied with the SRAs that we have. And because as you remember, we were combining 3 lots, and so all of the buildings on there had to have their designated septic areas. So we're to that point where they'll be signing off on the plat and getting that recorded here shortly.
Anyone else have any questions or comments?
Since you had, since the new owners come in, and they done had different things down there to bring it down, has been any problem with parking on the road?
Not that we're aware of.
Right. They still thinking about the other individuals that own this place.
Right,
That was the problem.
right.
They don't, they don't have problems with the events they have parking on the road now, do they?
No. The prior owner was holding weddings and things like that, much larger events, and this will be more modest events.
Right, the private owner didn't care. He didn't care about what we said or what anybody said.
No
He
comment.
done what he wanted to do. You know,
Right.
this owner cares, not only for the county, but for the neighbors that's down there,
Yes.
okay?
Mm-hmm.
Is there anyone in the public who wish to speak to this application? Hearing none, let's back up here for a request for a final site plan approval.
Anybody? I make a motion that we grant final site plan approval for Freedom Properties GOM LLC operating as Great Oak Manor for the accessory structure to be used as a demonstration and yoga studio, subject to providing an approved sediment erosion control, stormwater management plans, and submission of the required sureties. Submission of the required sureties for landscaping, buffer enhancement, and tree clearing mitigation, and recording of the lot line adjustment plat.
Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? I'll call the question. Jim Saunders? Ray Strong?
Aye.
Sean Jones?
Aye.
Jonathan Quinn?
Aye.
And Bill Crowdy?
Aye.
And I'll vote with the affirmative, so thank you. Good luck to you out there.
Thank you for your
Hope
time.
success.
Thank you for your time.
Our next item is a discussion from LRK Inc., updated and general information on Millington Crossing. I'll mention, Tom, the council said this is a presentation, so we shouldn't ask really questions. You can ask for clarification, but at some point, we'll have an application to review, but they want to present it as a courtesy.
Correct. There's no decisions being made by the board, the commission today. This is for informational purposes.
Good afternoon, I'm Jim Constantine from LRK.
Thank you.
Principal of planning, and I think we're just getting the presentation.
Oh, okay, good.
Loaded right here, so. Maybe while we're waiting, I should also indicate, I'm here on behalf of the Richardson Properties team, which is developing this area, proposing occasionally using Millington Crossing, but also on our team, Chip McLeod, Kevin Sheeran, and Russ Richardson, one of the principals of Richardson's Properties Corporation.
Thank you.
And I'll buy a little more time while we're getting this queued up and just indicate that the material I'm going to present is similar. It's sort of an update of when I was here on December 5th. And there is a package including this overview presentation as a PDF that we've asked Bill to forward on to the board after this. A cover letter which just describes that, a copy of our preliminary design guidelines, which will present and show parts of today, as well as a preliminary land use, connectivity, and open space plans as well, which are required under the mixed-use zoning that was adopted in 2024 by the county. All right. Thank you. Show me the full.
So because it's not a PowerPoint, it's a PDF, I can't make it fill the screen.
Oh, can you do Control L? Go for it.
Yeah, because we're viewing it as in a PDF, it doesn't fill the screen.
Looks like it's filling the screen now.
It's this mic.
Better if we could get it full.
I know what you're saying.
Do you have a PDF with you?
Fit the page. Let's try it. There we go.
Okay.
I think we got it.
Okay.
All right, wonderful.
There we go. All right, that's
Okay.
better. Thank you. Let's see, so.
Yeah.
Sure, thank you. So as you are aware, this area was designated a growth area by the county in the 2018 County's Comprehensive Plan Update. And we're going to sort of go through what's happened over the past 7 years very quickly. In 2022, we had a 3-day growth area planning workshop at the Millington Firehouse. That had representatives from the county, from the town. We actually did a public workshop presentation session for citizens at large. I think we sent a postcard to everybody in Millington and invited them out. We had representatives from Richardson Properties Corporation. Chip and Kevin were there, along with myself and some other folks from our firm. And it was a very productive 3 days where we really talked about what the new mixed-use zoning, this was 2022, so it hadn't been adopted yet, actually hadn't been created, what that might entail. We talked about a new wastewater treatment plant, and could that be located in the growth area? Well, there's some work that's underway now, preparing for that to potentially happen. We also talked about how there was a need for design guidelines that reflected the character of Millington, among other topics. So let me see if I can just move forward there. So the growth area, which is indicated here in the shaded area in light purple, and you can see where US 301, let's see, can you see my cursor if I move it? Mm-hmm. Great, 301. 291, so we are at the crossroads, and the Chester River actually comes up and sort of kisses the edge of River Road at this point too. The town of Millington is off to the east. Millington Road extends across the top of this area over to Chesterfield Bridge Road on the other side, and there's environmental features in terms of the Mill Branch to the west, and Food Lion is the most active and identifiable use in the center. If we really think about this area, today citizens use the interchange to get on Route 301, in some cases to leave the county and go get services up in Middletown for shopping and work and medicine and other needs. The growth area itself, though, is an opportunity to perhaps capture, and this is really the vision of your comprehensive plan, and try to provide a place where we can have locate managed smart growth for employment, businesses, services, increase tax revenues. And I look at it really grow locally right here in your backyard. So rather than this being a launching pad to leave, it really becomes a place to focus growth. So again, designating the 2018 County Comp Plan. There's a location for the wastewater treatment plant here, which is ideal, and that also starts to allow for this to be designated under the Maryland statutes in a way that by coordinating growth with the wastewater treatment plant, you can apply for additional funding, which I think the county has been pursuing with the state. There's a new zoning map and a new mixed-use zoning that have been adopted in 2024. And then just one point, as required by that zoning, there are things such as the district master plan, mixed-use development and design standards, and we'll just sort of touch on those things high level today because with the adopted zoning and the adopted zoning map, these become a little more real. So the idea for Millington Crossing design guidelines cover this area came out of that workshop we had at the firehouse in 2022. The county has primarily regulated single uses on single sites in your zoning to date. You begin to have some changes to that now with your new comprehensive zoning update. And everything is separated from other uses, buffering. Everybody provides their own stormwater management. And noted by your zoning consultant, when they did their original diagnostic report. There's challenges with that. This area is really intended to be mixed use, where we begin to integrate uses, sites, connectivity, shared stormwater management, where we can do it district-wide, which is much more beneficial environmentally. This is really meant to be a tool for both development and planning within this area, but also for the Planning Commission to use in reviewing it. I should also note these design guidelines, which will provide a preliminary set to you, are not required. So it's sort of an above and beyond thing that we've offered to do in focusing here. Within the guidelines themselves, we have a number of purposes, but we do think that they really help promote environmental stewardship. Talk a little bit about that. They try to reflect the character and the quality and the history of Millington as the closest town, settlement, and Kent County as really a rural place in terms of the context. And so that goal is that we're trying to help provide sort of a spirit and tone setting and some specific requirements that new development would better fit in with the area. And there's 2 centuries of building history in Millington, next door or down the road from us. And we really looked at the range of styles and tried to distill some principles from the patterns and the vocabulary that's there, that's part of the history of the place. And that doesn't mean things can't be different, but there needs to be a way that they connect and reflect and build on the history that's already there and just don't ignore it completely. So I'd like to explain a couple of maps here. On this one, you were flipped around. North is up, so 301 at the left, Maryland 291 here. You can actually see the limits of Millington in black over here at the 313 intersection. And you can see some of the environmental features, Cypress Branch and the Cypress Branch State Park shown here in green. The Chester River is down here. The Mill Branch is over here to the west. On this side, there is the Food Lion that we mentioned before that's located there, something that's obviously identifiable. And you can see in this first ring here, it's 1/2 mile, or if you were to walk from the Food Lion, 10-minute walk. And the second ring is 1 mile, or a 20-minute walk right there, which just gets you to the edge of the town of Millington and Rob Venari Park over here at the western edge of River Road in Millington. The environmental constraints, we went green first. We looked at environmental constraints. We looked at things like the floodplains. We looked at wetlands. We looked at where not to build, and we actually started with that as a framework. This green framework is really about what we want to try to preserve, and then how we can take on top of that and basically create a framework to build open space and connectivity on top of the lands that we would be preserving. And the big idea that really came out of this was what you see labeled there as Millington Crossing Parkway, this green diagrammatic arrow that connects the town of Millington through the middle of this mixed-use area all the way over to Howard Johnson Road and US 301 corridor at the left, with a secondary connection from the edge of the Food Lion up to Carroll Clark Road, which we've referred to as the Carroll Clark Road extension. The road that's next to the Food Lion, I think, doesn't have a name today. So we just sort of connected and added what we felt was logical. And that big idea of really seeing this linear park through there was something that Russ Richardson spoke to me about when he was first acquiring the land there. He really felt there was some opportunity to do something. It parallels what happens with the river, and it parallels the connectivity of Millington Road. So it really creates opportunities to loop and interconnect. And if you really step back and look, there is this green necklace from Cypress Branch and Edmonds Creek down to the Chester River and up to the Mills Branch that kind of rings and connects this area. And there's obviously other connectivity opportunities to the north at the edge of that screen. The image that you see on the screen here is from our mixed-use master plan. And you see on there land use, there's a whole bunch of identified categories. You'll get this in a PDF so that you can look at it in more detail. But what you also see identified here is that we've taken and begun to show this Millington Parkway crossing the site. We've shown it connecting to environmental features that we're preserving, connecting from Millington Road down to River Road, connecting ourselves all the way out to Howard Johnson's, preserving the Mill Creek corridor, providing opportunity for a wastewater treatment plant site. We've identified in blue what could be a potential future school site there, but it connects to the north, to the south, and particularly to the east back into the town of Millington. And the ability to really grow kind of a linear park network at several different points that interconnect the place together. On these slides here, we really go into some of the environmental goals that we've set, which is, one, really preserving in the Mill Branch corridor a large preservation area that sits at the western flank. And you see on this, these are pages from the design guidelines that, again, we will be providing a copy to you for. On the left here, you see the edge of Route 301 in this little snapshot of the plan and what that preservation corridor does from from Chesterville Bridge Road, down to River Road through there on that. So it really defines that western flank in green. And then the gateways and the parkways, this idea that we can have connectivity with streets, for complete streets, for pedestrians, bicyclists, motor vehicles, that are also part of a parkway, a classic idea, across the site. And you see that in a little more detail here from Howard Johnson Road, connects up Carol Clark down to River Road, and then winds its way all the way east and can connect all the way in to School Street in the town of Millington, and could have offshoots where we are preserving some wetlands and other environmental features, some woodlands, and running along potentially an additional parallel park system that would connect to the school, back into Rob Varnery Park, and the future wastewater treatment plant site situated right here. We have some specifics for this in terms of what some of the key road sections would be in this parkway. There are not roadway standards for this in the county standards today, so we felt it was important to sort of put these in and try to really set what we see as the vision for these connecting parkways, the hallmark of Millington Crossing. And you'll notice in each of these, there's a plan view on the left. There's very wide off-road trails that are also indicated here in the section in each of these street types. One has a median, one has just the side, what we call a side parkway or promenade, offset on the left, but accommodating pedestrians, bicyclists in this continuous park system that's linear, that crosses the site, is important. So what might that feel like? Well, here's an example of the type of character that you see. You have separated lanes, you have a landscape median, you see the trail along the edge, pedestrian crossing and bicycle crossing accommodation with the crosswalk. We also show a roundabout that we had on the plan in there, which again, from a design perspective, complements the parkways. It's using that same character. And this is an example from one that was built just a couple of years ago in another community. But we think it's a similar character to this. And now looking and applying these and looking from Howard Johnson Road, looking east, this is just kind of the framework of how this would organize the site, how it would create this interconnectivity. There's the roundabout, there's the connection to Carol Clark Road to the left, to the north, and down to Food Lion to the right, and then continues across the site there. And you can see some of the tree lines and some of the little areas where there's swales and water drainage and things that we've tried to incorporate into this park and open space system. So the guidelines really try to set some goals in terms of designing this when you get down to a little more detailed level, but also ways that parks and open space can become a central feature of the neighborhoods at Millington Crossing and really bring up the essence of the place, talking about the green side. So these guidelines both deal with the natural environment, the existing features of the site, how we can make them stronger than what they are today, as well as the built form. Now, we wanted to focus in on an area that actually is starting to see some change occurring. So the Food Lion is here, there's River Road. This is a blow-up of the land use master plan that we're providing to you. The asterisk in blue right here is the stormwater, the wastewater treatment plant. The Food Lion is located right there, and I'm going to now zoom in to show you a potential vision for this area. So the Food Lion is shown here in white, left. US 301 is off screen here to the left. There's a wooded draw that runs down to River Road here to the right. And then nestled in, kind of into the elbow of these two wood lines is the wastewater treatment plant that was identified at an ideal location in terms of drainage or in terms of discharge at this kind of a low point here. But we're also showing it within the context of what might happen with mixed-use development in between. And the reason that this is all sort of important was that there was a general location selected back when we met. It's actually occurring over the past few years. We talked a lot about it at our workshop in 2022. The design and engineering has been completed for the construction that's taking place right now of this 1,100-foot road. And there's a huge pile of earth that you see out here. But ultimately, there's a plan to significantly lower the grade in this area because it's not just plopping down a wastewater treatment plant where it's ideally located and it'll improve some of the environmental problems that we have right now with the Millington plant. Those will be solved. But it's also looking at it at a way that it doesn't become the centerpiece. And so on that service road to the construction of the future wastewater treatment plant, we're showing retail, business, office. There may be some upstairs. Under mixed use, there could even be a scenario where there could be some residential above. We're not sure that's going to be realized here. And then taking the front of Food Lion, where there's a great, really well landscaped little swale area out there today, and some green space in front, and really extending that in this grand Riverview Park, part of the sort of the whole series of parks and open spaces. And you can see it's also linear because it leads from Howard Johnson Road across Riverview Park, continues along this side of River Road, and could be part of a continuing park system. There's additional properties that are not under our control. So the idea here is that where you come into Food Lion today and turn into their parking lot, this road would continue in this direction. We provided a square framed by commercial uses, a road that in the future will be lined with commercial, and a building that's sort of ideally located and nestled in the grade where we're sort of shielding some of the view of the wastewater treatment plant that's there. And we do have a set of two-sheet set that will give you on kind of the updated thinking of this. And that road is being preliminarily constructed today. And you can see that, I said, that pile of earth out here. Although ultimately there is a consistent, consolidated grading plan for this whole area here that will really allow for this place to, when it's complete, wastewater treatment plant is there, there's commercial happening here, is that Food Lion, which sits in location today, and that's not ideal for in terms of it relating for spurring other businesses, for it to act as what's called an anchor. An anchor, supermarkets are classic anchors, but the Food Lion doesn't anchor anything because it sits in isolation. So think about all the businesses that the citizens of the county are looking for other daily services, from pizza to the sandwich shop, the juice bar, restaurants, barber shop, hair salon, dentist, optician, all the things that you have to travel now at a distance to get to, but that actually work better, support the business of the Food Lion's business and its traffic, then supports that. You have opportunities to perhaps park once and walk to multiple things. So it's sort of your neighborhood retail center, but done in a way that really uses streets, on-street and off-street parking, frames public space in this new Riverview Park, where we would love to see public programming occur, fairs and activities, maybe some daily type things that occur there as well, so that this really becomes this total integrated place. And again, part of the mixed-use concept is to be able to park once and hit multiple places on foot and then get in your car and return home. So it's sort of a lower carbon footprint in terms of that. All right, so here, what would this look like? Well, the guidelines start to envision what mixed use and commercial development, ideally, this is again tone setting, so it may in some cases reflect some of what's in Millington, but we think in terms of the commercial, we don't want to sort of water down or compete with the Millington character per se, so that there would be a mix of new things that fit in but complement Millington itself. And you see some images on the left and some of the design principles for mixed use and commercial, creating some usable open space, minimizing large exposed parking lots, how some of the buildings might frame spaces. We're trying to, again, create a more complete business hub for the daily needs and services of everyone. We actually drill down to the level of some building design guidelines that you see on the left. And these are, again, pages from the design guideline document that we'll provide to you. And on the right, the different mixed use and commercial frontage types from, it's kind of a pattern book where we show a forecourt, we show a shop front, gallery, terrace, different ways that the buildings that we just showed you on that plan could be integrated into the site. And then we actually go and show some examples for appropriate signage type that work at the pedestrian scale. There's no doubt there's a drive-by visibility issue with River Road, but we think first and foremost, the signage should be really designed in a way that promotes the walkability of the site. So we have everything from awnings to window wall, sandwich boards, hanging signs, post and ground mounted examples in the guidelines. And then when we get into the neighborhoods themselves, we have design guidelines regarding streets, which means the streets are complete streets. They're walkable with sidewalks separated with planting strips and shade trees. There's on-street parking, and then also how neighborhoods are framed around open space that you see pictured at the right, which is an image that that's a project we worked on 20 years ago in Lancaster County that has a mix of workforce housing, which is attainable housing in there, and rental and for sale, all different tenures. But you see that stormwater pond in the open space. I think that could be the sort of image that we end up achieving across the site in that whole linear park system here at Millington Crossing. And then we have some other guidelines for the neighborhoods that deal with orientation of homes to the street and to open space, blocks and lots and corner lots and terminating view lots, things that are more important, try to pay attention to, landscaping, screening, and respect and reflection of the character and the forms found in Millington. Doesn't mean things would necessarily be a copy, but we're trying to provide some design guideline encouragement to try to have some of the residential neighborhoods feel like they really were sort of the new neighborhood added to Millington over time. So this includes building types like the projecting porch or the engaged porch or the stoop. Those are all typologies found in Millington, as well as here in Chestertown. The orientation with the entry facing the street, massing fenestration, those are all things that are dealt with in the guidelines. And then kind of coming up the end here. We also have some specific industrial and large-scale design guidelines. And certainly the first large-scale building that may be built out there would be some of the buildings associated with the wastewater treatment plant. And driving in today, just going by the Kent County Public Works, which has some buildings that are clearly agrarian. They're simple pole barns, but they feel right for Kent County. And so we're hoping that, and this sort of makes suggestions that things like the wastewater treatment plant use that same sort of design vocabulary to fit in. It's not the only way. We have an example of a very agrarian shopping center in here up at the top, and some suggestions for how those larger scale buildings could fit in a more appropriate character for Kent County's rural environs. They don't all have to, but it's there, as well as buffering and screening, which are also important along primary roads for large uses. And then lastly, we have guidelines that deal with the design and landscape of stormwater treatment basins. We want them really to blend to the county's rural character, use more natural approaches, and try to design some of the stormwater detention as recreational and aesthetic features. And then with things like lighting adhering to dark sky compliant design and fixtures, we know that's important to the county so that you're kind of keeping those light levels low. So in conclusion, next steps, the county, we're expecting, will continue advanced design and complete funding for the new wastewater treatment plant. We're getting the road built to it right now. The landowners here in this mixed-use area, which includes Mr. Richardson, are continuing to market development parcels and properties zoned mixed use, and there has been increased level of interest by developers who want to come in and be part of this special story of creating this place, this special place here in Kent County. And then the district master plan and mixed-use design guidelines, which we provided some preliminary copies. We'll be providing those to you. Need to get some county review because those begin to become the regulations that are used to review things here. And then we think lastly that there's opportunities to explore opportunities for reinvestment and improvements for partnering with the town of Millington. We want to see what happens out here, help the town, and see everything sort of repositioned for a stronger economic quality of life and sense of place. So that really concludes my presentation.
Thank you, sir. I don't, we have a sign-up sheet for the public. I'll read some of them. Russ Richardson, you want to say anything, Russ? I got your name on the sign-in sheet. Did you want any comments or anything?
I think Jim covered it very well. I
Okay.
think that, now part of this is when you get the wastewater treatment plant at least admitted to and broken ground. There are a lot of residential developers who are very anxious to develop here. I think it's important to understand that there's really three major tracts of land. We own one of about 422 acres. Freeman Evans has 125 acres. It's in the town. And Lindsay Dixon of La Crosse Homes has the Maloney 142 acres under contract. So all three of us are talking to different builders, and there's a little bit of competition there. And there's certainly the early competition for the few remaining EDUs that are available. But we're in a strange position while we might be considered competitors in a way. We've all been talking together and trying to work together for the betterment of this development. So what's really important here is for somebody to get started. I don't think there's enough initial EDUs for all three to chop it up and get 15 apiece or something, or 20 apiece. So if somebody's going to get EDUs and start with a development residentially, and that'll test the market, and we'll see how deep this market is then, and that'll determine how fast it accelerates after the EDUs from the wastewater treatment plant become available. We've had a lot of early discussions with the town and I have to sort of apologize. We really felt that because the county had the staff to process the approvals and to give us input, that we would stay with the county at this point and not go into the town. We also felt that at the time, the town was really transitioning from prior management into a new management, and they hadn't worked out all their issues yet. But the last statement is, I think both Lindsay Dixon and I are committed to this. We realize the town needs improvements. We see buildings that are blighted that need to be addressed. We see streets that need streetscaping done, both 291 and I guess it's Sassafras going north. Both of those, there's a couple $100,000 of improvements that need to be done there. And we're committed to doing those in the future to help the town solve some of its problems. And because we're really part of a larger development. That's what this connectivity is all about. It's making a larger community. And we certainly see at some point doing some kind of more legalized integration with the town. But maybe continuing to have all our approvals at the county level where there's a more experienced and competent staff.
Thank you.
So, thank you very much.
John Leisinger? Anyone else have a comment or anything? Go ahead.
Is that on? Yep. Okay. Janet Christensen Lewis, Millington, Maryland. I would like to address the Commission regarding the continued presentations by Mr. Russ Richardson and LRK concerning development plans for land identified in both Millington and Kent County as comprehensive plans for annexation into the town of Millington. Despite this clear designation, Mr. Richardson has publicly stated that he does not wish to be annexed, already indicating that he does not have a desire to work with the community. While he initially engaged with the town of Millington to pursue zoning consistent with his vision, he abruptly changed course and brought his proposal to the Planning Commission instead, openly expressing hostility towards Millington's governance and planning director, who were simply fulfilling their duty to ensure development adhered to the town's comprehensive plan and served its residents. I too shop at a different store if I think I'll get a better deal, but that's nothing but bargain hunting, and we shouldn't mistake it for serving the public good. Mr. Richardson continues to assert that he knows best, citing his credentials as an architect. This reflects a familiar developer strategy to present Plan A with persuasive finesse, burying the drive for personal profit beneath a polished pitch, one that tries to bypass thoughtful, community-driven planning. I fail to see the purpose of these repeated presentations, if not to influence the final decisions this governing body will make regarding zoning and site plan approvals. Why else return again and again outside the scope of a hearing, if not to shape the narrative and soften any resistance before the public has had a chance to be fully heard? These informal presentations function as infomercials, promoting a private development vision without the weight, transparency, or public notice of a formal public hearing. While procedurally allowed, they give the appearance, fair or not, of backdoor maneuvering. They deprive the public of a fair opportunity to respond and erode trust in this Commission's process. It is essential that if these presentations are allowed to continue, that the Commission must be careful not to let their deliberations be shaped by rhetoric and repetition alone. Hearing the same message over and over again without balanced public input fosters what I would call a stuck narrative syndrome. Repetition creates a false sense of consensus when concerns have not been addressed, alternative voices not heard, and questions remain unanswered. The land in question was designated for annexation. Millington has a plan. Kent County has a plan. These plans reflect the will of the residents and their vision for the future. The commission must honor those plans and ensure that changes demanded by one developer do not sidetrack deliberations that would be guided by transparency, fairness, and the public interest. We can have development and still hold fast to the ethos of the community. These are not mutually exclusive. What matters is that growth aligns with local values, not the ambition of one individual. Mr. Richardson is not a knight in shining armor riding in to save us from ourselves, as he would have us believe. He is a developer trying to wring out of this land maximum profits. Thank you for taking my comments.
For anyone else, comments? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, I would just note for the record that the presentation was noted on the published agenda item, and this meeting is open to the public, and the public does have the opportunity to comment, which is evidenced by the comments that were just made.
Yeah, thank you. All right, staff reports? Are we going to talk about schedules?
We are, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Apologies, yes. So, the July meeting falls on July 3rd this year, and I know that you all have some conflicts, so we wanted to look at calendars today and determine a new date for the July meeting, and we also need to do that for the August meeting because the first week of August, this chamber will have our vendor working on equipment and taking things apart. So if you all don't mind, we can set a date. Usually we have items every single meeting, so it is possible we might actually not have an item, but that's only happened, I think, once since I've been here in 6 years, so I'm not counting on that. And I'm just pulling up my calendar so I can see dates if people have questions. So I know Mr. Ruge is not here. He said he will be available most dates in July. He said July 10th, which is fine. He is available in the middle of August, but not the very end of August, if that helps with choices, so.
For July, I'm available on July 10th.
I can do the 10th.
Okay.
Yeah, I can make that work.
Okay.
You guys all right?
I can't.
Okay. How about you, Bill?
Doesn't matter to me. So that's July 10th?
Yeah. Where you be, somewhere hot, cold?
Yeah, I got a wrong doctor's appointment. I might be able to get it changed. It's early enough, I might be able to get it changed.
Okay.
So I'll check.
August.
So August, we actually have two blackout dates, the 14th and the 15th. This is also not available. So if we want to do a Thursday, that pretty much makes it the 21st or the 28th, but that's going to be awfully close to your next meeting.
I was going to say.
And we don't have to do a Thursday. So we could do, probably can't do a Tuesday, but we could do Wednesday the 13th, I believe, or Monday the 11th, if they have interest in that.
I'll be on vacation from the 9th to the 16th of August.
Okay.
What about the 21st? Just
Go on vacation.
In March.
You work for it.
Thursday, the 21st.
So we would have a meeting 2 weeks, is that, I mean, for staff, I mean, more than anything, you get prepared for that, have it 2 weeks?
How does that work for us?
It's hard to say. I mean, at
Depends.
this point, I mean, we know we've got a couple things for July's meeting. We don't know yet what might be coming forward for August. And I guess we could theoretically just postpone, tell anybody who comes in, we're not having an August meeting. And make it September.
If it's going to be 2 weeks apart, I would suggest that.
Okay.
Take August off.
Take August.
August vacation.
So you might have a meeting in August.
Okay. All right, thank you for reminding me of that, Mr. Chair.
Any other staff reports from Bethany?
I do know one thing that will be on the July agenda, and that will be the 2024 annual report.
Yay. Is it all finished? You finished all your edits? Anyone on, go ahead.
Some information I need, but I couldn't get it on for this agenda, so.
Anyone on the commission have any comments, questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
That's second.
So moved.